Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 42 of Petey's Awesome Guest Battle. And man, as a longtime fan of Simpsons, this is a long treat for me. My guest is not just a legendary voice actress, but she is also an actress, writer, producer, and coach. You may know her from her work, best known for her work on The Simpsons, where she was Helen Lovejoy, Maude Flanders, Miss Hoover, Luann Van Houten, among other voices. She has also done many TV and movie appearances, such as Pretty in Pink, Happy Days, MASH, and Laverne and Shirley. In addition to that, she was nominated for both an Emmy and an Annie Award in 1997 for her work as Sherry Bobbins on The Simpsons. And as a longtime friend, this is a true pleasure. My guest at this time is Miss Maggie Roswell. Maggie, how are you?
Here, wait a second. I'm going to push this thing up here, and I'm going to make it like this. So, there we are. The two of us can see each other together as one. All right, fantastic.
Cool.
And I got to say, I saw your thing with Pat Music. I want to figure out how she did that whole black background. I talk for a living, and then have her blonde hair. It was so gorgeous. Anyway, so keep going. So ask me anything. What would you like?
Well, before I ask you the questions, though, Maggie, I just want to say I'm paying tribute to you today as I'm wearing my Simpson shirt my parents got me for my birthday.
Fantastic, brilliant.
Absolutely. Now, before we get into the Simpson question, because I have lots of those questions,
okay.
I do want to talk about your first break in acting, and that's your typical cliche question, but I'm very curious to know.
No, actually, my first break, it was pretty funny because I had studied to be a theater actor. So I went to Los Angeles City College. I'm 7 generations Californian. So first century families in California. So my dad was like an executive. My mom, was kind of not, she did a lot for charity, blah, blah, blah. And then I just decided that I would be an actor. So I had done it in high school at Immaculate Heart High School, where, I've got to say that the, what is she now? The Duchess, she went there. So Meghan Markle, but so it was a little private Catholic school. And then I was going to go and be an actor. So I went to Los Angeles City College, which had this 3-year program. But then I was invited to go to UCLA. But then I realized, why am I going to UCLA when all the best teachers are at City College, which they are, and they were. And, Mark Hamill was there, and Cindy Williams. Like a billion people that have been in television for so long. And so I ended up going to school there. And when I was doing a show, it was like what you always see. I did a show and I played Ernestina Money in Hello Dolly. And this casting director saw me there and put me in my first Love American Style, the first Love American Style. And I was also in the second. That's how old I am. But I did Love American Style, and which was a huge role for me to come right out of school and do. And then I was on MASH when MASH was huge. And, I started to do a bunch of stuff, and I thought, how hard is this? This is great. They said it was going to be tough. Then right after that, I didn't work for 2 years. Although I was like on camera girl, doing every kind of counter girl for every every commercial, did about 1 million McDonald's commercials, all these things. So I was doing all this, and then started to do pilots, which they do in LA. And actually, if you go on Maggie Roswell, on YouTube for Maggie Roswell, you can see some of the things I did with Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Mork and Mindy, all of these shows that I'd done. And so I was doing all of this, wanting to do film and television. That was my deal. And I still wanted to do Broadway, so I was doing theater pieces and stuff, but I didn't even think of voiceover. And then I guess I was doing the Tim Conway show, where I was one of the stars of Tim Conway with Tim and Harvey Korman, which was unbelievable. And then somebody heard my voice, because it kind of has a gravel in it. And they said, oh, I really like her. We would like her to do this Jack in the Box commercial. And I literally said, white meat. And that was all of a sudden, all these residuals come in. I go, what am I doing? This is fantastic. I want to do voiceover. So I was in voiceover in LA when I went to New York, and I did Stills and Company in New York on Broadway, and was doing a bunch of commercials in New York. And they always thought that I was a Jewish girl from New York instead of a Catholic girl from LA. But maybe it was because I talk fast. So I did all of that, and that was all great. And then there was this part that they had for the Tracy Ullman show, and they asked me if I wanted to do it. It was just a little sketch singing Leader of the Pack with Tracy Ullman. And so I went, and they said that Fran Drescher, who had been doing the show, didn't want to sing. So I thought, well, why would I want to do that? I mean, if she doesn't. So they said, well, you'll be singing with Clarence Clemens of the East Street Band and Carole King. And I went, okay. So I did that. And at the end of the show, they came back, the casting director, Bonnie Pietila, came to me and said, we're doing a takeoff of The Simpsons. And I went, because I'd never seen The Simpsons on Tracy Ullman's show. And she said, would you like to audition for it? And I was like, yeah, I guess so, but I'm going to be a big star. So I had no idea what it was going to be, but it turned out that this monumental thing. And then also on camera, in film and television, it's insane. Because when I was a kid, you're working constantly, and then until you're about 30, and then there's like a break, and then you can work more. And some of my friends that are doing a lot of work now are on the other side of it, where they're letting their hair go gray and they're doing all this stuff. I didn't. So I just decided that, when I was starting to do voiceover, that this was the best thing ever. In fact, my shout out, definitely goes to Susan Blue, because I took a class with her. I took a class with everybody, Michael Bell, Susan Blue, all these people, because I kept thinking, well, I should do voiceover. I mean, I've been doing film and television. How hard could it be? Well, I was an idiot. I had no idea how much work it takes to put it all in your voice and not in your acting. So I really, I took a class with Susan, and Susan, God bless her, she has very similar quality as I do. And she kind of taught me how to manipulate my voice to be a better voice actor. And I just thought, and I wrote her the other day and said, I don't know if I ever told you, but I've really got to thank you for that. Because, I got a piece from Michael Bell, a piece from everybody, but having Susan actually show me, because I was a singer and a belter, and I did a lot of musicals. So she kind of showed me how to use my voice, because I tell people, when they say, they go, if you were doing an acting job and they say the cat ran down the street, you go, oh, the cat ran down the street. And then in voiceover, they say, okay, say the cat ran down the street. You go, the cat ran down the street. They go, no. Do it with a little bit of a smile. The cat ran down the street. Now do it with a little bit of a laugh. The cat ran down the street. And now you do it, the cat ran down the street. Could you do it, so all these different shades that you don't realize that people do. I mean, that is what really makes voice actors. But when we were doing it at the time, it was very, it was a small group of people. Now there's a billion people and everybody says, they always say I have a great voice. I'd like to do voiceover. And you go, well, isn't that fantastic? Of course you should. But and I don't ever deter people. But if they're, when you said coaching and stuff, I say, who have you studied with? And I want them to study with everybody in the whole world. And then I will coach them, primarily because I feel there are a lot of people that take people's money. And if they're going to make it in the business, great. But they just take their money so they can take their money, which is not my deal. So I always go, where have you studied? What have you done? So hopefully they can have a lot of improv. And I did 10 years of improv with Harvey Lembeck, and also with Sills' mom, Paul Sills' mom, Viola Spolin. And so that was amazing, because you're with the godmother of improv. And she is just incredible. She's gone now, but to be a protege of hers was amazing. And that's how I ended up doing Sills and Company on Broadway. But improv itself, I tell everybody to do improv. I mean, you should do improv. Everyone, because it just helps you move and think. Can I just keep talking? Anyway, what else? I can go on, darling. I really can. I don't mean to, but I can. So that's kind of was my foray into doing voiceover. That was what I did.
I see. And you also mentioned, Sills and Company. You also did a theater work. There's some productions like, you did Cabaret, and you also did Mia's Big Apology. Memories of doing those.
Mia's Big Apology was so much fun because it was with Julia Sweeney, and Julia Sweeney wrote it. She was on Saturday Night Live. She did Pat, but she did this character called Mia. And Mia was just kind of like this, and she was, and that was, Mia Copa was her name. So we did that show for about 2 years, one night a week. It was my best job ever, at the Groundlings. So many people, I mean, I was lucky enough to not only work with a lot of the Groundlings, and they, Sherry Stoner, who you probably know as an incredible voice talent as well as writer producer. Sherry Stoner was in that. I mean, we had such a blast doing it at the Groundlings. So a lot of people went, oh, well, you're one of the Groundlings. I said, no. And then I also, when I was working on Tim Conway's show, I was working with a lot of people from Second City. So they always said, literally the woman, Jane Stallings, who ran Second City, thought I had been in Second City. I said, no, Jane. She goes, no, no, no. When exactly were you in the company? I said, I wasn't in the company. I just work with everybody. We just work together. So I worked with so many improv people and doing incredible jobs, like being able to work. We opened at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles in the Belly Room. We were a group called Tap City that opened the Belly Room. And there were incredible actor, improv people that were there. And when I went back there, like, I don't know, a year or two ago, I laughed because it's like a little teeny tiny room and there were about a ton of us in the company. How we were on stage, we must have made up most of the audience, but there was like I think a little fire escape that we would like walk off stage and be on the fire escape. So that's kind of was our deal. But being able to work at the Comedy Store, I mean, there were so many pieces of my life that I was lucky to be able to do and to play a lot of, like I did Side by Side by Sondheim. And it was at the place called the back lot of Studio One, which was a great theater to work at. And it was in the back of the like big gay dance floor. So during your, and this is in the 80s, and during all of our songs, you hear boom, 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 boom from all the disco mama. But it was, it really is. I have had such an insane life that people laugh because I go to bed early. And I said, I was up for like all the 80s. I have to sleep now, And people go, it's going to be a really great party. I go, I've been to a lot of great parties. They're fantastic. I mean, the Simpsons parties are renowned. They were, in the first years in particular, I remember they had Christmas parties where they brought in a hill of ice. So like my daughter could go on, a little sled down ice. At Sony Studios. They also got like the best Santa Claus from across the country, and they brought him in to be the Santa Claus. And they made this huge, like, I don't know, it was like a castle, an entire huge room that people could go and eat from. The first one we had at a bowling alley, and we had bowling shirts. I mean, their parties were amazing. And now it'll be kind of interesting to see what they do because Disney bought them, but Universal has Simpsons World or whatever. So you kind of go, how are you going to work that out exactly? Will there be a Simpsons thing at Disney? So, but I don't know.
It's incredible. And I always want to go to that Simpson world. Like my family and I always want, we're huge Simpson fans. Like, and
Yeah.
Want to go that. Like one of the main attractions there is of course the ride where Sideshow Bob is the main villain of the ride. And there's the Canyon Close ride. There's an actual Quickie Mart, Moe's Tavern, Krusty Burger. It's just, I'm like, I wish I was in Florida so I could just go to these places.
Well, I'll tell you, this was the one that we went to in LA when they have the parties there. So I don't know, since COVID, there's been no parties, but if they had the party there, they opened everything up so you could go and, win prizes and stuff and go on any ride. And I mean, it was really incredible. And then get stuff at the Quickie Mart. I have pictures that, if you go on MaggieRoswell.com there, I've got pictures and stuff from going there with Milhouse and me, just like that.
Well, you were Milhouse's mama.
I was Milhouse's mother. Yes, I played Helen Lovejoy, Reverend Lovejoy's wife, the godly wife of the minister. And Matt Flanders was the next door neighbor. And Miss Hoover was the teacher. Dolph Richard Bart's friends. Male person delivers all the mail. Princess Cashmere, real name is Shauna Tipton. The head of Kitty Carlisle and Match King 2010. All the old women, the old folks home with Grandpa, and Sherry Bobbins. And also Luann Van Houten, who's Milhouse's mother, who got divorced. So, and then a myriad of other things. But that, like, people go, what do you do? I used to do this in LA, or when we first got to Colorado, because I've lived in LA, in Manhattan, and then in Colorado. So, I mean, you couldn't get more diametrically opposed to all of these places. But having lived, when I was in Colorado, people would say, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm in the business. And they go, well, what business? Well, show business. Have you not known the business? But You realize that people here are not just in the business. But I would talk to them and just say, I do this show. It's The Simpsons. Oh, what characters do you play? So I go through that litany and they go, oh, I don't watch this show. Okay, then why did you have me do those characters? I feel like an idiot. But anyways, so.
I do want to talk about, because you appeared on there's two shows that were Nick at Night classics, Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley. What were your memories working on Happy Days as Joyce James and Laverne and Shirley as Karen Caldwell?
Well, this was crazy because being able to work on Laverne and Shirley, I played and you can see a picture of that on MaggieRoswell.com. I played the college girl. So Lenny and Squiggy, Lenny falls in love with me and he falls in love with the college girl and Squiggy doesn't like it. And so that was such a sweet time. And Michael McKeon, I've got to say, what they should have done years ago is put the two of us as either the leads in a series or the crazy next door neighbors, because there's some people that you just click with right away. And we always click together. It was just, we kind of anticipated each other. Probably because he's an actor and has done improv and stuff, but just such a great guy. So that was really, really fun working on that. And Laverne and Shirley weren't there. That's when they were kind of, I think, at odds, whatever. But then in Happy Days, it's kind of funny because I first went on the show and they had me as like a girlfriend to Chachi and to Henry. Well, I was supposed to be Henry's girlfriend, but Henry's shorter than I am. So then they said, well, at the end of this, and why don't we have the boys kiss the girls? And so then they said, well, shouldn't really kiss him. Well, then you'll kiss Chachi. So my first screen kiss was with Chachi. I wanted to say, this is like not good. I mean, Chachi was, so much, this is not good. And then they ended up cutting that scene and then having me come back on Happy Days and sell the Cunningham's house. So that was pretty wild. That, being in some of those classic moments where you go, yes, I sold the Cunningham's house in Happy Days. But I did a lot of film and television and, Lost in America and Pretty in Pink and Switchback. And, there's one called Midnight Madness that I did that became a cult classic because it was Michael J. Fox's first movie. And we got some dispensation when we were doing the film because everybody else was on strike. So we were able to kind of get an okay to do it. So then there was nothing else they could play because everybody had been on strike. So they just kept playing Midnight Madness over and over again. And it's an all-night treasure hunt. And that also was a blast because I worked with Stephen Furst, who was in Animal House, and David Naughton, who was I'm a Pepper, You're a Pepper, and just a lot of really great people. But it was kind of like a renegade group working doing. And so it's so funny because someone will say, I remember somebody, I was signing something. I said, well, why do you like Midnight Madness? And he goes, oh my God, it's a cult classic. And I thought, you mean like Rocky Horror Picture Show? Oh yeah, there you go. So it's pretty funny. So those are like the little bits of things that you go, wow, I've had quite a career, baby. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned Pretty in Pink, though. I want to get your time working on Pretty in Pink as Coach Dietz.
Yes, well, it was great because Molly Ringwald in particular never does the same thing twice. So people who are working on with her at that time, I don't know how she is as an actor now, but she would always, there would be different things. So if continuity, I'm sure would go crazy. But they had Marcy Liroff had cast me in this, and it was, a great thing to be on. Well, I'm supposed to come into the scene. So I said to Howie Deutsch, the director, I said, well, what about, if I'm calling roll call when I come in? He goes, oh, okay, that's great. Well, I call roll call and I'm calling roll call. There's no names on there. So I'm saying all the names of my friends. My sister was married to Fasano. So I said Masano. My old boyfriend was Norclin. I mean, it was really funny. So I was just like reading down the list of all my friends' names and people go, here, here, here. And then it's great. So I hope her breasts fall off, Miss Dietz. So it was also like one of those great classic moments. And I think that's also on, on YouTube where you can look at Maggie Roswell as a young girl. That's when my daughter saw me in Midnight Madness. She goes, Mom, you were so young. I said, yeah. And then you get older. It's how it works. What happens? Oh, here, wait a second. Let me get some water. Why, look, it's my lipstick color. I love it. Fabulous.
This is why I say, Maggie, you're one of the most charismatic actresses and voice actresses I've ever seen.
Well, thank you. It's a beautiful thing.
Anytime. And I do want to get your time working on Remington Steele as Margaret Tracy.
Oh my God. Well, see, on Remington Steele, I always thought that, and actually, I thought that I would always get a part where I was kissing him. Wouldn't that be great? But I played a sports reporter. And so that here you've got the most handsome man, ever. And you can't kiss him. So as a sports reporter, I literally said to him at one point, do you want to lift some brewskis together? And actually about 4 years ago, yeah, actually even more recent, I did reading for a movie for Paul Reiser, and he was one of the leads in it. So, and why is his name running out of my head? James Bond. It's Remington Steele was. Work with me here. I can't remember. Oh my God, who was Remington Steele?
Wasn't Pierce Brosnan?
Pierce Brosnan. Okay. So, and he only gets better looking as he gets older. So, I actually had a little thing on my phone of our scene, one of our scenes that we had done. And he said, oh my God, we were babies then. And it was kind of crazy because it's a movie that Paul's going to shoot that is in Ireland. So he needed somebody to read through the script that could do an Irish accent. That was fine for me. But I'm doing an Irish accent opposite Pierce Brosnan, who's from Ireland. And I'm thinking, okay, this can't be good. This is not good. Not only that, but they said, okay, we're going to do Northern Ireland. All right. And then you're going to play 3 other characters. So I had to have 3 different Irish accents. And so I kept saying to Paul, who do you think I am that I can do all that? Because I've known Paul for like 1,000 years. So it was just like, you'll be fine. Just do one of the accents, it's fine. And it actually turned out okay. But it did make me laugh that here I'm doing this opposite, Pierce Brosnan doing my Irish accent. I'm hoping he's just not laughing at me on the inside of his head, But I always did a lot of dialects, and I guess that kind of was what set me apart doing, like I did Mac and Jamie Comedy Hour, and they had me go back on there, and there was, who was it? I forget, someone had gone on to Saturday Night Live, and then they had me do it. But, I was doing sketch comedy because of having done improv and then being able to do the Tim Conway show with Tim and Harvey, and then all these other things that I've done. So I've always been used to doing different accents, putting on a wig, running around. But now, voiceover, you sit back, boom, you do it. And people actually think that I'm off Simpsons now, and I go, no, I'm still on the show.
Going.
Yeah, so it's a good thing. I gotta say, it's and those guys have been just so sweet. And Al Jean and Mike Reese in particular, who are the ones that wrote the Sherry Bobbins. But they really kind of champion and Cohen, all those guys that are writers that I've known for years, write really great things for my characters, and that is very sweet. It's great. I get to live in Colorado. I go downstairs in our recording studio. I do the job, come back upstairs. Boy, tough life, especially in this pandemic. And a lot of people, ironically, didn't have well, why would they? Why would Dan and Nancy and those guys have studios in their house at the time? They probably do now, but in that time they didn't have any. And so we've ended up going to, they ended up having to go into a closet somewhere to do the show. And we've had a recording studio for all this time because coming back and forth, we were doing stuff. And I just did stuff for this last political season for the Lincoln Project, which was really great for me to do. Not great for a lot of people, but great for me. It was fantastic. Anyway, so those are the things. So what else?
Oh, I was just curious to know, your time working on MASH's Sister Teresa.
Oh God. Well, see, great stories. My daughter always laughs because one of the first jobs I did at City College was A Cry of Players, a straight play. And so one of the first things, and I was just like one of the little people in it, and they said, okay, who can play the lute? And I went, I can play the lute. I thought, how bad could it be? I said, but I don't have one. So they actually handed me one and said, here, just, just get used to it again and then bring it back on Monday. On Monday, I go back, I start to cry. I go, I don't know how to play the lute. And so they said, okay, just stroke it and sing. I went, fine. Well, it was kind of that same thing, like fake it till you make it kind of stuff. So when I went in for Sister Teresa, and you saw it. So I had just done this big thing on Love American Style. So it was like the second job, but it was like the biggest show. It was #1 show ever. And going onto that set was amazing because people like Alan Alda came up and were, hi, I'm Alan Alda, like you don't know who he is. Just everybody on the set was very giving. And I've walked onto many sets where people are just don't talk to you and you go, okay, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling comfortable. It's kind of that feeling when you're a kid and you're walking into the first, first class of the first, after summer and you don't know anybody. And that's how you feel when you walk onto a set. Well, they were very gracious. So they had said to me when I got the job, they said, can you drive a stick shift? I said, sure. No. So I thought, how hard could it be? So I had done this big part, and this was only a couple of lines. So the agent was going, I don't know, but it is this big show. And I was like thinking, it's a job. What are you kidding? So I literally have this little beatific face, and having had 12 years of Catholic education, you know that nuns can look scary, but I have this little innocent face. And I say, she came to me looking for her son. I took a chance. And there was Vietnamese woman, they've adopted like, a little Vietnamese kid that they think has no mother. So it's like the final scene, and I'm taking the woman and the kid in the truck, and we're driving straight out. And so I can shift it into first or whatever. They have me just in it and I'm going. So I am going straight, and then all the cast is here, and then the camera is right here. So I'm driving like this, and all of a sudden I see their eyes like this. Because I literally am driving and the mirror ends up hitting the camera, and then I drive away, and then they go in the walkie-talkie, okay, Maggie, can you come back, please? And I just went, I don't know how to go into reverse. So they had to send someone out, bring it back. But you see, fake it till you make it. That is my thing. That's what I live by.
That's awesome. And your memories on working on Dynasty as Penelope Shane.
And which one?
Dynasty?
Dynasty. Oh my God, Dynasty. Wow. You can dig deep. I don't even remember it. Those were like when you kind of go, I don't know. I did a couple of lines. I came in, I went out, I'm good. A beautiful outfit. I just found something the other day from what was it? Guns in Paradise, where I got to dress in like this Western attire. And that was fantastic. But there's so many things you do them and then you go, okay, yeah, that's good. Okay, fine. In fact, a girlfriend of mine still has a photographic memory and can remember every line from every show she ever did. Me, I do it, and 5 minutes later, my brain is sprayed with Pam, and I go, I don't know, did I actually say those words? So that one, I don't know. I have no stories for that one.
Now, before we get into Simpson territory, I do want to ask you like some other voice-over work you've done. For instance, you worked on Fire and Ice as Tigra. What was it like working on Fire and Ice and working with Ralph Bakshi?
Oh my God. Well, Ralph Bakshi is insane. He's a nut. And so when I first worked on, what did I do first? I don't know if I did that first or Mighty Mouse first, which for me was great because when I was a kid, it was all opera going, here I come to save the day. And then Ralph Bakshi did a very short series for, I guess, CBS or whatever, of Mighty Mouse. And I got to play Pearl Pureheart, which was like, that's kind of like for me, the way that you are with Simpson is the way that I was like being able to play this character in Mighty Mouse. That was amazing. But I think either I did that before or after, but no, it must have been after because Ralph wanted me, they had done this thing called Fire and Ice. And it was rotoscoping, which was very big at the time, where they would just draw on these figures of people. And so now he had wanted me to replace this girl's voice. So it was really kind of southern voice, and she wasn't a very good actress, but her body was insane. So he decided that my voice should be on her. So you, if you ever see it, it's like, ah, ah, ah. And it was just so funny. And then at one point they throw me off a cliff, and I have the worst scream in show business. No, I mean, it just doesn't come out that way because it's something protecting my throat. So I get thrown off, and I was like, ah, and then I remember sitting in the theater watching it, just like going, oh my God. And I said to Ralph, why don't you replace me with somebody? You know, you got this other girl's got a great career. He said, it's fine. And what Ralph did, and especially with that, and what he did when we were doing the Mighty Mouse, is that he would just like give you the script and you'd open it. And they got him a good cold reader because that's what he liked to do. Like there's what people don't realize is like with Simpsons, you know, we get the script, we study it, they look at it, they do, you know, all sorts of rewrites, and we re-record, blah, blah, blah. But when you're doing most things, like in Hanna-Barbera, and the ones I did in Hanna-Barbera, they would give you the script before. You had usually 3 voices. You'd at least be able to go through it and maybe mark a little bit and then go in. Ralph likes you to just, you know, I like it gritty, all right? So when we were doing Mighty Mouse, it was Ralph Bakshi and John Crispolucci that were in there. Yeah, Ren and Stimpy. So it's so funny because I worked with kind of like all the bad boys of animation, including the guy who did Pebble and the Penguin, you know. So it's like all of these guys, everyone, all the, you know, bad boys of animation, that's me. I work with them.
Now you mentioned screaming though, like as a voice. I want to get your opinion because I actually, when I had Roger Bumpus on the show, Pat Music, even Michael Bell last night. When it comes to voice acting, of course, there's going to be some scene where you're going to require to scream. I want to get your opinion on screaming, like as when you're portraying a character. Like what do you do, like to help, you know, psych yourself up to like when you have to scream as a voice actress?
Well, see, I think with screaming, and that's really, and just like I said, it's not my best deal, you know, and crying on cue was not my best deal. I had to do a series once where I had to cry. The only reason that I was able to cry is I went to the people, I said, can you give me something in my eyes to make me cry, blah, blah. And they said, no, because the next scene, you haven't cried yet from your husband dying. So it's like, and then they were just shooting. Jake and the Fat Man are one of those like series. So I go and I'm supposed to cry, and they literally say, okay, action. And I'm so freaked out and not being able to cry, I start crying. So that was it. But I think that's the big psych out, that if you were really having to scream, like I think Ralph should have used another scream for me. But usually there, with animation, which is good that I have so much energy, it takes an inordinate amount of energy. And so most of the people that are there are really strong actors that can get, I mean, because your voice can sound tired. And I've gone into jobs where people say, so-and-so, you know, are you okay on this? Yeah, well, your voice sounds tired because you're just like this. You don't have any energy. But I think that the energy is the biggest piece. Like with Michael and those kind of guys, I think Michael and my husband Hal had been on not just maybe it was G.I. Joe that they did it, where both of them, they had to for 8 hours walk around like G.I. Joe. I forget who their director was. I think it was.
Was it Pat Fairley?
With who?
Was it Pat Fairley?
Oh no, Pat Fairley wasn't the director. This was like an old director that all these guys had worked with, who used to make them, you know, become the characters. So most people just go, they want it now. Like you have to, you know, whatever your laugh is, whatever your thing is, you better have it. So when I'm also talking to people about going into voiceover, I mean, when I first started voiceover, whatever job I was doing, like I was up against Sally Kellerman and Demi Moore and all these people. It's not like you go from 1 to 1,000. So I got to do a job for Sally Kellerman at one point because I'd been doing this big joke about Sally Kellerman and, you know, the Hidden Valley Ranch dressing. And I did it for some of the people in there. And then they had me come back and say, could you do that character again? I said, I thought you got Sally Kellerman. They said, yeah, but the way she was doing it sounded kind of drunk. I said, well, that's how Sally Kellerman sounds. It's her sound. But anyways, so I guess to your point, it's really about the acting piece of it that you really get into the character. And I think because I had done so much improv, it was much easier for me. There's some things that my improv character can do that, like it's with Helen Lovejoy, that she does, then someone else doesn't do. Like Maud Flanders just does things, and the way that she does it and the way she feels is just so her, and that's it. And when I came onto the show, a lot of those characters were already established. So you had Reverend Lovejoy, and you had, yeah, all of those characters. So I was really coming in to be kind of the yin and yang for those characters. So I figured that Reverend Lovejoy with Helen Lovejoy, he would have married someone that everyone that I knew that was, we belonged to a beach club when we were kids. And you had these mothers that were like this. Yeah, and that's exactly the people that I would do. And in fact, when I would fly back and forth from Colorado back to LA, I was getting off the plane and I go, thank you, thank you, thank you for coming. And so then I went in and I said, okay, what if people are leaving church? She goes, thank you for praying with us. Thank you. Oh no, thank you. So,
did they also go, bye-bye, bye-bye?
Bye-bye, bye-bye. It's true. Think of the children. Oh my God.
Oh man. Now your memories on working on Tiny Toon Adventures at Mary Vane.
Yes, of Tiny Toons. Well, and actually that was really fun with Tiny Toons, I mean, because, but again, when you're in those rooms, the people that you're working with everybody's so high quality that all you do, and to be fair, everybody's also the one that used to make jokes in the back of the room when they were kids, like especially in Catholic school. So the entire room is filled with everybody that used to mess around when they were in school. So the director's more like, people work with me. Because everybody just like, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat. Oh, again, nothing up my sleeve, presto. All of that stuff. It's a blast. So that was a great cast to work with, the Tiny Toons cast. But then what else?
Ask me
things.
What was that?
Ask me Simpsons things.
Oh, I'm gonna get to that because I have lots of those questions because longtime fan of your work and longtime fan of Simpsons. I do want to ask your time on Tailspin as Sally.
Oh my God! See those I don't really remember. So that's why I said ask Simpsons. I don't remember some of those.
We're gonna get into the Simpsons right now. I like Simpsons as the main event. Like the one thing we talk about, and because I have lots of questions for that. In fact, one of the questions I have to ask related to Simpsons is your audition for The Simpsons. Tell me about it. Take me there.
Well, the audition was literally, which is really kind of crazy, a cassette player like this. Like, here, do some of these characters into here. So I did some characters, I read some stuff, and I booked the job. So it was not like in a big studio and the stuff. I think it was with Matt and Bonnie, and I went into the office and they were just really nice, and there was no pressure, which makes it so much easier, but that was with a cassette player. That's really what they were doing. So it wasn't la-di-da. So that was really a fun, I mean, when I booked it, I didn't realize the magnitude, as you can imagine, of what it was going to be.
I see. And for you also, you've done many voices, in the first season, you played mothers, you played the two main characters that you played for season 1 that made their introduction debut was Helen Lovejoy and Princess Cashmere. You mentioned her real
right. Princess Cashmere's real name is Shauna Tipton.
Yep.
Yeah, true. Get out of my cage. That was such a blast. And I've actually got an animated print of Cashmere and Homer going like this. And I had Matt sign it because that was just such a blast playing that character. It was really, really fun.
Very cool. And also because I used to, my parents, used to buy me the Simpson figures, the World of Springfield figures. And I had, all the characters you played. I had Miss Hoover, I had Princess Cashmere, I had Maud Flanders, not Maud Flanders, sorry, they didn't have one, unfortunately, but I had Helen Lovejoy. And they were just cool because they had these figures that actually were interactive. You put them on the set and they start talking, though.
Right. Well, see, and actually, I'd been on the show for 10 years, and then I left for 3 years, and then I came back on the show. One of the reasons I was back on the show is because they had called my representation and said, look, Maggie's not doing the show anymore. And so we have these characters, and then they said, well, here's the thing: if Maggie's voice isn't in those characters, then we don't want to. We're not going to make those characters. So then Fox came back and went, do you want to do it from your house? And I said, why, I certainly do. And especially because, at that back in the day, getting your health insurance was insane. So it's kind of that thing that you realize the amount of money a lot of the cast members make is certainly not where I am, because a lot of them have gone on with that. But for us, being able to live here and still be able to do The Simpsons and still get the residuals and still do everything has been nuts. It's been really, really great.
Cool. And one thing I loved about like your role in The Simpsons, that with any character you portray, is just, I love how you totally emote like the character. Like Helen Lovejoy said the seven most powerful words on television, which is, "Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?"
I can't believe that was so huge. And it was funny because when I was at Comic Cons, people would say to me, could you just say that for me? Yeah, but you don't know as you're doing it. Like a lot of I Caramba and those were pretty clear that Nancy was going to do that stuff. But for me, like that was such kind of a fluke where they came up with that. Then people, it ran wild. So that's kind of one of the things that everybody says. Could you say, please, would someone think of the children? And then they did variations on a theme of that for a great callback for so many shows.
Yeah, and for next ask more Simpson questions, I do want to share something that Nancy Cartwright wrote about you in her autobiography. She wrote, and I quote, "Maggie Roswell has been blessed with a skill in creating one of the hardest things to create, the normal sound, whatever it is. She can easily slip into the gal next door or any reporter, medical student, jury member, accountant, and scientist."
That's very sweet. Who said that?
Nancy Cartwright.
Oh my God! In her books, and I forgot about that. But yeah, it was, for me, that was wild, because it was like every person. And actually, it said when they killed Maude on my tombstone, she was every woman to everybody, or something like that. How they would always they would go into the cemetery to show everybody who had died or what had happened, or that. So, and that was very sweet. That was kind of like the eulogy to me, because what people don't realize is when I quit the show, and then they came back with this other actress from New York who didn't even try to sound like any of my characters. Then they decided that I should come back on. But what people didn't realize is they didn't realize this had all happened. So a lot of people came in and hadn't seen the script before and were reading through it. I mean, they'd read through their lines, but they hadn't read necessarily the whole script. And when they, Pam Hayden had called me, she goes, well, did you hear what happened? I said, no. She goes, well, they killed you. I said, they killed me? They said, yeah. And so my own death scene was not done by me. So I said, they killed me. I said, isn't that a little intense? So, and I said that to Ian Maxstone, who was one of the producers of that particular show. And I said, wasn't that kind of crazy to kill me? And he said, well, to be honest, we were looking all over to find someone to replace you, and your voices were just really hard to replace. I went, you think you only wanted me to do them? But it's all right.
They couldn't.
So, but it really was kind of creating these sweet characters. And I think they brought back a lot of flashbacks with Maude Flanders, because except for Lisa and Marge, sometimes there's not very many vulnerable characters in Springfield. And maybe Nelson's he's a little vulnerable, but a lot of people, they're not vulnerable. So it was nice playing some of those characters that were vulnerable, and especially Maude, because she was just hoping for everything. I remember when I was first doing things and I would do stuff as Maude Flanders, and there was one point I went, oh, Nettie. And then I saw the animation of it and it went, oh, Nettie. And so I guess one of the animators had come in and watched us do that, when we were doing the table reads and stuff. And that was very, very sweet, to have your character be so much a part, of this iconic show.
I see. And I remember, like, to this day, it was the episode Alone Again, Natural Diddly. It aired February 13th, 2000. I was a 10-year-old kid, counting my Pokemon cards back in the day. and then I saw the episode and I was like, I was so crestfallen when they killed Maud. I want to know like your reaction to that episode and um, just what you think about it.
Well, it was a drag for me not to do my own death scene. You know, I would have done it much better. No, that and that they killed me, that was pretty insane. And then I thought I would never be back on the show. But as it turned out, that death, my death, and then coming back on the show made me, I guess, more infamous than anything. It's one of the top 10 deaths in television, which I think is wild. So, like, another moment, iconic moment, that who would have thought that that would happen. But it really is. I think that that was so sad, and that they had to kill Maud. And I always say that it should be like Dallas or one of those shows where they go, "Oh, it was all a bad dream," and then she comes back. But now they've done much more of a flashback, just because she was really sweet and innocent, you know. So it's been, you know, I did a show recently that they did a flashback, and you really kind of see another background between she and Homer, and that was fun to do because it's been a while since I've been able to do her. So that's been really great.
Very cool. And I remember like, you know, usually like C Maud, like she's mostly serious, but I remember one episode, I think it was called Much Ado About Nothing, where it was the bear episode and you delivered her crying and it just made, it wasn't supposed to be funny, but it was funny how you delivered the line. It was like, she goes, "Oh, Marge, it was horrible. We were locked in the house and, well, we had to drink toilet water." And I was like dying of laughing when I heard that.
Well, you know, and so much of that, I mean, the writers are insane. And it got to be doing The Simpsons and then going out and doing other like shows, you know, just regular TV shows. It was very hard because the writers on The Simpsons, I mean, they're brilliant. And in fact, those guys that were in the Harvard Lampoon that went on to The Simpsons and then have gone on to other shows have come back to do The Simpsons because, you know, there's really no holds barred. It's not like you, if they want to be on the moon, they can be on the moon. If they want to be wherever, any kind of flashback, anything, they don't have, they're not limited to what they have to write. So that has been really a great thing. But yeah, so it's been good.
Absolutely. You could still hear me, right, Maggie? I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay, just good. My microphone's still on. No, and you also worked with many, you know, guest stars, and you know, cast members. I want to get your thoughts on working with the late great Marsha Wallace, who played Edna Krabappel.
One of my dearest friends. And Marcia and I had done a pilot early on. It was called Characters. And it was a wonderful pilot for Fox. And she was brilliant. And it was so sad when I found out that she died, because I knew she had gotten cancer, and then she had, you know, beat it. And then there was just this other stuff that happened. Yeah, that was terrible, because we would just sit back and laugh the whole time. You know, because at the time when we were first doing the first 10 years, we sat in a huge like sound stage, and they had a ping pong table, and people would play ping pong in between things, but we would be there for like 8 hours. I mean, it was like a regular job. So now they literally go in, you do it, they do a couple of takes of stuff because people know the characters after so many years. But initially we would all sit there. So the fun thing is some of the people, you know, that would come in, like I got to meet Elizabeth Taylor or Danny DeVito, or I wasn't there for Michael Jackson, but there were a lot of different people, Audrey Meadows, all these people that, you know, that came in to do The Simpsons, and then you just hung out with them, you know, which is so much fun. And that was it's kind of like actors just being together and everybody's on the same page. But it was funny, I was watching Danny DeVito come in, and I thought, you know, he had been such a big actor and had directed and all this stuff. But he was like the way that I was saying, feeling like, "Hi, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm Danny." You know, everybody comes in with their own stuff, because you go, everybody's already together, and then I'm coming in as the odd man out. But it was, you know, so good. And, you know, Michelle Pfeiffer, I mean, so many people. It was such a blast.
Were you there when Tom Petty guest starred?
No, the only one that I was there for, who were the ones? I wasn't there for many of the rock stars, because they just had the rock guys go in there. But there was Um, just about everybody. I mean, everybody that wasn't one of those. Although I heard that Bono came in and I think he wanted like tequila in the morning for his guys. I don't know, but though then all the stories start coming up and you go, was that real or is that Memorex? You know.
Did you have a favorite guest star in The Simpsons?
Um, Actually, I wasn't in the show and I never got to meet him. But I think one of the first years was Lisa and he was the substitute,
Oh, Dustin Hoffman.
Dustin Hoffman. And that was probably, and I wasn't even in the show. It was one of my favorite shows ever when he says, you were Lisa Simpson, or the little note that he has. And Dustin Hoffman at the time didn't take it didn't say guest starring Dustin Hoffman. It said guest starring Sam Eddick, because she always said you have Semitic good looks, and so his name was Sam Eddick. But and I just saw something online that was talking about all the people that either turned down The Simpsons or were asked to be on and never were. And I remember seeing Mark Hamill, who I knew from college, and he said, I really want to be on there. I said, but yeah. And I saw him, I don't know, at the commissary or something. I said, they could be making fun of you. He said, I'm good with it. And then they had him on, and he was so good, but he's an amazing actor anyway. But yeah, so it was great having as many people as we had on there, and I mean, I was really lucky to be a part of that. And especially in the part of the first year, because now it's very similar. People go in, but they'll maybe go in and do their part. And now everybody's all across the country, because Hank is in New York. And I think Harry's in, where is he? In New Orleans, and Julie's somewhere, so everybody's all over the place. So it's not like the days where we sat in there for 8 hours playing, ping pong and going to lunch. So, but it was a great thing.
I definitely have to ask you about this gentleman though, because he's one voice actor I idolized growing up. You got to work with him, I'm sure, and I think I bring him up in every voice actor's interview though, and that is the late great Phil Hartman. Memories of working with that gentleman, because I was such a huge.
Well, it just broke my heart. I mean, it was, and see, I knew Phil from all the people from Second City and the Groundlings and everything. So I knew Phil earlier than that, and he was such an amazing guy. And that, I mean, I was wrecked, just wrecked when I found out that he had been murdered, and that was just like, I mean, so mind blowing. And especially when you hang with somebody for all that time, just playing ping pong, doing stuff, and, so funny. And I think at that time, he was talking about maybe doing, I don't know, some talk show and being the second banana on talk. There were just so many things that he was going to do, and he was maybe going to move to Catalina because he really liked Catalina. It was just sad, just really sad. But what a brilliant actor. And when he would play any of his characters and just be like, well, Mrs. Simpson. I mean, it's like every kind of sleazy car salesman you ever met, just wonderful. And, and he is, but Hal and I was laughing because it was, it's like a mule with a spinning wheel, so it's like some of the stuff that he would say as his characters, as Troy McClure, would just slay me. And it was very hard not to be laughing pretty hard while they're, because when you're in the sound stage, they're up there and we would go up and do our work. But if you were here and you were hearing them do it, it was really hard. You would just have to be like this, not to be laughing so hard, because he's so, so good. So good.
He was. And you know what? There's 2 times when I was a kid where I cried when voice actor or actress died. One was, of course, Phil Hartman, and the other one was Dana Hill when she passed away.
Well, Dana and I had done Mighty Mouse together. So we would laugh because first, he would have these people, I don't know if you know, with Ralph Bakshi, what he did when he was doing Cool World and stuff like that is he really got hookers from 42nd Street to come in and record. So Dana, when somebody would walk in, we'd look at each other, and she would open up a little thing, write down and say, is this his drug dealer? So we were always laughing. And I mean, that was another one that got me, that was very sad. Really, really brilliantly talented, girl. And it's like, you watch that kind of stuff and you go, oh man, taken too early.
I agree. And
yeah.
you know, and we talked about Phil though. Like I'll still remember the interaction you had with him as Miss Hoover, where he was Lyle Landley. He goes,
Yeah.
"Hello, Mr. Landley. I'm Miss Hoover." And he goes, "Miss Hoover, that is hard to believe." And you go, "Oh, you,
Oh, you. I mean, he was
Carmen."
so funny and would just come up with things, just his demeanor. But then that was the thing of watching someone do it and then animating that character, but you're watching the actor performing. And that was so great. It was really, really good.
He was.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna have to go in just a little bit, so you might want to ask some of the questions.
Yeah. I have a couple more before we end. First of all,
Okay.
I gotta ask you, like, Kirk Douglas said in, like, according to an oral commentary of The Simpsons, Kirk Douglas in the episode "The Day the Violence Died," where he guest starred, said he
Right.
hated using headphones because it hurt his ears. As a voice actress, what's your opinion on using headphones?
Oh, headphones, I mean, they're great for me. I never had a problem with that. But a lot of people, I think, they hear themselves and it kind of freaks them out. But we're so used to using cans all the time in the studio here that it's much easier for me. What has been weird though is doing like Zoom. So I have the Zoom, and usually like I have a little earpiece I could put in my ear, and then I could hear you and da 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 da. But I kind of like to just talk and do what I'm doing because I think that the earpiece sometimes makes, but you kind of are smaller and when you're working. But I think that with the cans, what has been wild for me is wearing the cans so I can hear them. And I'm doing Zoom. And recently we did a show where we had like 6 or 7 producers up, on screen. And then I'm hearing what they're directing, and then I'm watching. But it was very hard for me to not like actually play to the camera instead of just going to the microphone. So that was the hardest part for me. It's not I'm so used to performing on camera or on stage or whatever. So
I see. And did you have a favorite Simpson episode you did?
what my favorite one?
Yeah. Well,
Probably Sherry Bobbins, because I was not supposed to be doing that job. I went in to sing, and I'm a mezzo belter, and obviously Julie Andrews was a coloratura soprano. And so when I went in, I just did, I read through it until Julie could come to do the job. And it turned out after that, she'd gotten her voice, she did something with her throat, and then she couldn't sing as high anymore. But when I was singing those, that was rough because, if you cut every corner, it is really not so bad. Everybody does it, even mom and dad. So it's like it's a different place with her voice than it would be if I was going, if nobody sing. No. I mean, I'm used to singing much lower. And there was one money note that we talked about, like, I forget what it was. And I just said, to the musical director, couldn't you just like goose it up, mechanically? But they actually got it. But initially, I did 2 passes on singing for that. And then they didn't need me more because she was going to come back and do it. Well, she couldn't do it. Actually, the reason she initially said she couldn't do it is I think they were going to do another Mary Poppins, and she didn't know if, from what the story goes, I don't know the exact story, but I think she didn't want to get Disney upset if she did some takeoff, whatever. But she was absolutely she was going to do it. And so then when she couldn't do it, they came to me and said, we're going to have you play Sherry Bobbins. And it was so shocking because that is the only like vocal impression. Like, Tress McNeil and people like that do a lot of vocal impressions, like Cher and all these different people. But for me, that was the only one that I could do because I saw that movie so many times that I thought, well, I could do that, so, but the wild thing is my daughter Spencer and I sat here and was able to watch it 1,000 times. Whereas when I was a kid, you go to the movies, 4 years later, it would come out again, you go to the movies again. So it wasn't like, you couldn't watch a cassette tape of it 1,000 times to get your voice ready for it. But that was probably the biggest honor. And then be nominated for it and all of it. It was just that was my ultimate, I think. But all the character, I love doing them. And then now so many years later, it's been such a such a blast to be able to do it because, here I am, you're 68, and you're doing like, a boy or something like that. So it's like it's great. I mean, what a joy. And especially during this pandemic, not only with the fact of the pandemic, but how blessed we all are to be able to do a job at all, be able to, that so many people are not in a good way. And if we can give them a little bit of joy, it's a nice thing, so.
You still got it, Maggie. And I do want to say, like, I gotta share this with you. This was Halloween two. Definitely want to share this with you. This was Halloween 2 years ago. I paid tribute to Phil Hartman. This was my costume.
Oh my God, that is so great!
I did.
I like it. It's brilliant.
Thank you. And I also paid tribute to Kelsey Grammer too for Halloween.
Oh you did? I'm sure Kelsey would love that, darling. You're brilliant.
Absolutely. And now, before we conclude, though, Maggie, because this is the part where I let every one of my guests, this is an open forum, and this is the part where all my guests can talk about or say anything they want. The floor is now yours, Maggie.
All right, the floor is mine. Well, enjoy your life. No, just try to be as happy as you possibly can be. It's so crazy right now. And you can't, whatever you can do to help yourself every single day. And they do all these things like sleep and all this stuff. Yeah, easier said than done. But, like today, I wore a bright color because part of it is just trying to be happy every day. And it's very hard when every day is blending into the next one. We're a little better off in Colorado than people are in other places because, they've opened up more here so you can sit outside and that kind of stuff. But it's still crazy. But, I've got MaggieRoswell.com if you want to see some of the stuff I did, and also YouTube with Maggie Roswell. That if you go to my channel, if you scroll down, because a lot of these people are putting stuff on my channel, I don't know who they are, and they're not even things with me in it, so I got nothing. But mostly I just say I'm really blessed, and I'm really happy to do this with you, Petey. It's been a blast.
Absolutely. And before we conclude, though, I just want to ask, like, would you be open to part 2 of the interview to talk more about Simpsons in the future?
Possibly, yes.
Okay.
I don't know when.
No problem. And I want to conclude by saying thank you for not only this interview, but for all those childhood memories you gave me watching Maud Flanders, watching Helen Lovejoy, Miss Hoover, Luann Van Houten, Faith Crowley, Princess Cashmere. I can go on and on with these names. Like, and in fact, I think, definitely I could finally do this, and that is thank you, Maggie. Thank you,
Thank
Maggie.
you, Maggie. You're so welcome. I adore you.
Thank you. And I'm going to send you a copy of this interview as soon as I'm done editing, so that way you have access to it.
Yay!
You have an awesome day, Maggie. Thank you again so much for the interview. You made me feel like I'm 5 years old again.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Well, I feel like I'm 108 now, so that's good. It's brilliant. Okay, well, I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Take care.
Bye.